Hey guys, Jared here. Today I wanted to talk about world building, mainly a crash course in world building. I could go on and on about this for like a whole day or week, but I just kind of want to dial it in. I'll start at the conception phase and then start moving into some of the building blocks you'll need to get started. First, we'll start broad. Let's really think about the aesthetic we're going for. What genres have inspired us, and what specific stories have really piqued our creativity and imagination? It's perfectly fine to pull from your influences, everyone does. I love coming across something that inspires me. It's a major spark for creativity. It could be a genre or a style, a specific scene, characters, or overall vibe of a story. So, in other words, it's the feeling of, oh, this is a good idea, let's explore that further. Consider what genres you want to play with. Mix and match stuff that seems odd. Let's take George Lucas as an example, who mixed inspiration from early pulp sci-fi like Flash Gordon with Wild West adventures. He was also inspired by Japanese movies like Hidden Fortress and others that featured wandering katana-wielding ronin. He flavored his Star Wars settings with gunslingers, wizard, samurai ronin, alien monsters, and anxious robots. If you think about it, the influences are all over the place. However, that's what makes it so good. Somehow it works. On the one hand, high fantasy works well with a certain WW2 villainous party and the whole evil emperor thing. We get our Black Knight character, an evil wizard, and an unstoppable weapon. Then throw in the wandering cowboys and ronin from a desert planet to save the day. You touch so many different genres, but they all work together to tell the story. Rustic heroes defeat the power-hungry villains. Now that we have our big idea in mind, let's bring it back down to earth. Engaging with your character's senses really opens up an imaginary environment. Our sensory perception is how we interact with the world outside of our own minds. Often we imagine the worlds we create in visual terms. However, to really create an experience, an immersive one, we need to engage in how the environment feels, smells, sounds, etc. These other senses are the tools we use to navigate our world, but maybe it's just more of a subconscious process. You might not be aware of your sense of smell until something really stinks. I've grown to love exercising this in my day-to-day life, and something I imagine as connecting with the elements. The sense of fire, water, earth, air. Stepping away from our brains to touch grass or jump in a pool or get fresh air is crucial. So why not use that as a meditation? Remember the feelings and oddities in the natural world around you and use that for your created worlds. This is more relevant in spectacular settings, since the whole point is to give your audience an extraordinary experience that is somewhat believable. Let's say we have a character moving through a snowy forest. I could describe the whiteness of the snow and the evergreen trees. Maybe it's nighttime and the sky looks awesome. All that is great. As stunning as the surroundings look, my character's legs might be burning from stomping through the snow. Maybe they're hungry. They've burned a lot of calories. Finally, they're getting to a campfire, and the icy air becomes warm. There's food cooking, and they're so hungry that it's the most amazing smell they've ever encountered. Okay, we're feeling inspired, and we have an idea of how we're gonna weave this world building throughout our story. Now let's get into the nature of the world you're building. Its physical reality, the most fundamental building block. This could include how an alien civilization evolved on a planet, or how primordial gods shaped your magic world. Either way, once you understand what forces created your world, you can expand into all kinds of terrains within this world. For example, let's consider a sci-fi story where intergalactic explorers find an exotic, rare planet full of life. Something like James Cameron's Avatar. What elements will we need to consider to flesh out this vibrant alien world? First, how hot is this planet? Is it similar to Earth? Is it a little hotter than Earth? If so, you might want to consider jungles or even deserts as a primary environment. If it's a little bit cooler than Earth, then you're looking at tundras or deciduous forests. A good opportunity for furry aliens. How about gravity? This will not only affect your characters physically, but the way the wildlife looks on the planet. High gravity equals something crab-like, in my opinion. That sounds about right. I'm sure space is full of crabs. How competitive are the evolutionary forces of this planet? After surviving the basics of food, water, and shelter, what lurks outside is the next concern. Highly competitive worlds that are otherwise super life-supporting may have some wild life forms. Here's a weird one. How compatible are the genetics of this world and your own? If the genetics are compatible at all, you're gonna be in trouble with viruses and microorganisms. And finally, is this place awesome or what? Don't forget to enjoy the strange alien environments you explore. Strange flowers and other oddities can be as big or as little as you want. It's all fun. Once you understand these broader forces, you can create other environments inside the world. Naturally, the environment will change depending on where your characters travel. Even within short distances, the environment around a body of water will be different than a mountain forest. The little details matter. Next, you're going to want to know what your civilization looks like. Basically, what technology does the world use? This is a baseline for economics and political structures, so you can further develop those after you figure out what level of technology you're actually dealing with. For example, the world became drastically different once the Industrial Revolution hit, making the modern economics we know today. Really, what are the limitations of your given technology? It's always fun to watch characters problem solve, especially when it's creative. You can stoke this creativity by setting limitations, even when the technology is advanced. Your character may not be able to warp out of a dangerous situation, but they will have the knowledge to navigate the situation in other ways. For sci-fi genres, the technology is commonly on the sophisticated side, but this doesn't have to follow the same path humans have taken. Maybe another alien civilization chose a more biological path with their technology, as opposed to machines that we would see with humans. Technology is a broad term, so we can expand this to mean many things. However, it does often follow a culture's values, so remember to bake that into why a certain technology has evolved. Also, you're going to have to brush up on theoretical science and do some hocus pocus to make your technology believable. Sometimes this comes as a breakthrough in engineering. We can take a theoretical concept like quantum entanglement and finally have engineering feat that warps a ship across the universe. Maybe diving into a supermassive black hole does the trick. On the other hand, we could go with the concept of alien technology. Honestly, that's a fair workaround to explaining things. It's always mysterious, which is a definite plus. Leaning into the fantasy genre, you'll still need to decide how your society works. Magic gives you a great opportunity to invent wild technologies. The key is to ask yourself, how can these forces be harnessed by machinery? A popular answer to this question is the magic crystal trope, gems harnessing magical properties and acting as batteries. You'll often see this in steampunk worlds. Netflix's Arcane is a great example. Of course, you can also mix space-age technology with magic, like a space opera. Once again, Star Wars is a great example. I don't mean to harp on the subject, it's just Star Wars is a great example of everything. Anyways, think about how the Force interacts in a world of space-age technology. It is a sacred energy bound to life and creation, where machinery is often connected to destruction. Think of how Luke's journey was symbolized by his need for a robotic hand. The question throughout Return of the Jedi was, is he going to turn to the dark side like his cybernetic father? On the other hand, the Force interacts in interesting ways with the kyber crystals that create their lightsabers. Again, the magic crystal thing. Man, I could go on about this one, but to break it down, you have to think about the fact that people think differently. Truth is, humans are wildly different from each other in many ways, and wildly similar in others. We can absolutely stretch that further with alien or otherworldly civilizations. Consciousness is a weird thing. However, it's also a cool thing. The fact that people have different points of view is not only an inherent thing we need to get used to, but also an interesting fact about conscious mind. Not only do individuals express themselves in unique ways, but cultures make their own unique shared aesthetics, beliefs, and arts. Star Trek does a great job of creating otherworldly cultures based on what we've seen on Earth. Some cultures will be warlike. Maybe we're the warlike culture in the galaxy. Other cultures have no belief in individuality, like the nefarious Borg. Still, others are peace-loving cultures that have evolved as a conscious species. Encountering any of these cultures has its own unique experience. Before we get into various religions or philosophies, we should think about how the culture evolves based on the environment they live in. Let's take Frank Herbert's Dune, for example. The Fremen culture that is native to the desert planet Arrakis have built a culture around water. It's the most precious resource to them, even though the Galactic Empire covets the planet's spice melange for space travel and other crazy magic technology. They've built the idea of water into cultural norms. For example, they spit as a sign of respect, sharing their water. Once you have these environmental and technological issues figured out for your world, you can really take history as an example of what to do with that. You just gotta spice it up with some outer space technology or magic. Of course, conflict is always going to be an issue. People will always find a reason to not like another group of people for resources or just the way they look. Unfortunately, this is a part of culture as well that your characters will need to deal with and navigate through. Both individuals and communities can be shaped by these conflicts, which bleeds into their philosophies or even religions. Again, we could go on and on about world building. It's a topic that could have an entire course worth of subject matter. You're literally building something as complex as the real world. However, if you get a solid concept in mind and plant your characters in the scene, you'll be able to come up with fascinating aspects of your world you didn't think about before. I'm a big believer in finding your story through writing it, but organization is essential to creating something cohesive. You don't necessarily need to know every corner of your story's world, so you can figure that part out after the initial skeleton is constructed. Thanks for watching, guys. Feel free to like and subscribe for more genre story related content.